Hi everyone, welcome. The bin that you see here with this cardboard covering with the little traces of the diatomaceous earth powder sprinkled on it, this is the bin that we've been doing our so-called ping-pong feedings in. Once upon a time, maybe a couple months ago, I had placed a pineapple in here. Well, not the entire pineapple. I had eaten the part of it that you normally eat, but the outer skin of it was placed in here, and it took forever to break down. It was just a couple feedings ago that we finally started noticing some progress on the pineapple vanishing, and I believe it was actually nowhere to be seen last time we fed. Last time we fed was 12 days ago, and at that point I came down here with a variety of things. I actually came down here with a little bit too much stuff, so I was going to give them some berries, some banana peels, and some apple, kind of a mix of apples and pears, and I ended up hanging on to the berries because after I had put all the banana peels and apples and pears in, it seemed like we had enough food in there, so putting the berries in seemed like it would have been overkill. I'm not sure if it's visible from the camera, but the spot over on this side of the bin, right beneath our coffee filter slash feeding zone indicator, is a little bit depressed because this was where that feeding had been placed. Like I said, 12 days ago, so we'll get to see how our feeding of apple and pear is coming along. Since we're covering with only cardboard, I was just curious about the moisture level out here. Right here in the middle of where the cardboard was, there's still a little bit of dry stuff, but you don't have to go very far to get to some nice damp stuff. Surprisingly out on the edges too, even though that's really where the air is able to come and go pretty freely next to that cardboard covering. The system's somehow managing to maintain its moisture level quite nicely. I guess that's part of the magic of castings that people really appreciate, gardeners really appreciate. All this dry stuff that's out on the surface will eventually get blended in, because after we take a quick peek at how the last feeding is progressing, we'll go ahead and we'll open up the side that we are going to be feeding on. I've already moved our feeding zone indicator over to this side. Although, I'm going to be bringing down some coffee, as well as a new filter. So this old filter I believe we could just use as bedding for the next feeding. I was just checking out this very fibrous object. I don't know what it is. It's a little bit longer. It's full of fibrous strands, and it looks like it's been pretty heavily worked, and it's quite fragile. It's a shame that I just tore it. It would have been kind of cool to just leave it as one to make it easier to find in the future, maybe. Here too we've got sticks. This might be what this is. It a plain old stick, or is it like the stem of a vine of grapes? I don't know. Alright, let's proceed now. I want to see how that last feeding is progressing from 12 days ago. And it's not going to deter me from feeding today. It could possibly influence whether we feed a lot or we feed just a little. Or it might even influence what we choose to bring down here to feed them with. The coffee's a given, so I definitely plan on including coffee. But whether or not we're going to stick to fruits or we're going to switch to veggies or what we're going to give them next is kind of up in the air. Sometimes it just depends on what's on top of the pile or on top of the collection of food scraps in the freezer for them. Because most of the stuff I put in here is frozen, as was these pieces of apple. And I don't know, I thought there was pear in here too for some reason, but I could have been wrong. Oh, here's the banana peel too. So there was a good variety of yummy fruits placed into this feeding area. There could have been other things too, as far as I remember. I think there was worm chow placed in here. What else could have been put in here besides that? I don't know. But as far as the feeding goes and the foods are concerned, I think we've seen pretty much how things are coming along. It's obvious that there's plenty of leftovers here, right? So it's not like we need to feed, but in one of these systems where we're kind of experimenting with the movement of the feeding area from place to place, sometimes it really doesn't matter, because by the time you come back over the edge of the bin that we were going to put the food into today, Over there, now you're not talking about possibly leftovers from a feeding 12 days ago. There you got to add another 15 days because there have been 15 days pause between feedings last time we checked in here. So that's almost 4 weeks now, 27 days since this side of the bin got fed with, I believe it was banana peels. Because last week too we checked to see how that last feeding was progressing. We pulled out all the banana peels we could find and we saw a good number of them in there still. Because banana peels take a little while to break down. I don't know why, I was just curious to see what it looks like if I just sort of excavate right beneath or right along the edge but down low, and the stuff coming out here is super fine. Not super fine, it's very nice though. Really rich in castings. When I went straight into the area where we just fed last, there was a lot of fresh bedding, a lot of leftover foods. A good number of worms too, but sometimes it's kind of nice to see how the castings themselves are coming along, and it seemed like I got myself a nice little preview of it over there. So let's try to bring over all this apple banana peel combination, try to cover up the leftovers nicely so we don't leave all kinds of tempting food items right out on the surface for passerby insects to take an interest in. Yes, obviously there are insects in here. And that powder that I've been putting on the top surface of some of my bins, as we saw earlier here too, the diatomaceous earth. I was trying to phase over to using something a little bit different, using those mosquito dunks, the BTI bacteria solution. So I stopped applying the diatomaceous earth powder, switching over to the mosquito dunks solution in every case in all my systems. And I'm wondering if it might be beneficial to start phasing the diatomaceous earth use back in. So I don't know if the mosquito dunks takes a while or if it's even going to, have much effect on the particular types of little flying insects I'm trying to cope with. I know that the mosquito dunks is usable on mosquitoes obviously, but I thought it was gnats as well, so I'm kind of classifying the insects that I'm seeing down here in my wormery as gnats, but I couldn't tell you what they are in reality. My hope is that they are gnats because I believe that the mosquito dunks works equally well on gnats as well. So here on this side, you remember I mentioned there was banana peels used to feed this side. There's also a pumpkin feeding that goes way back when, which included this stem here, and the stem's holding up pretty good. And I'm sure there's still some other leftovers in here if we keep probing. Yeah, here's some more banana. Not too surprising. Banana takes a little while sometimes. This is definitely grape stem. It's basically a stick. So I'm thinking with all that left over on the other side, I'm thinking we can maybe just go a little bit lighter than what they got last time. When you saw all those leftovers there, you could see that I had like an entire Ziploc full of those frozen bits of apple and or pear, as well as a couple banana peels. So I think something that's definitely no more than that. I don't want to go crazy overloading the system with excess food. And to feed now might even be classified as being excessive with the feedings, but I don't think it's going to be a problem on these ones where the feeding zone shifts from place to place. It seems like usually the worms do okay. So I've got to take a break, head upstairs to the fridge to get them something. I'll try to be thoughtful in getting something appropriate for what this system could use now. Maybe I'll get some bright ideas when I see what the options are. So I'll head up to the freezer now and we'll pick up where I left off when I return. Well, it seemed to me like with the prevalence of banana peels and then apples and a lot of fruity stuff going in, I thought we'd switch gears a little and give them more vegetable type matter. And I'm not sure if it's visible on the camera, but this coffee just came out of the machine, so it's still piping hot and steaming. So maybe by being placed right next to some frozen veggies, it'll cool off a little bit before we place it in the bin. We've made ourselves quite a hole here. So luckily, if we're putting something that's either too cold or too hot down in here for these little guys, it shouldn't affect anyone since there's no worms there. And they'll be able to move in as soon as they feel comfortable to do so. So let's see, we're going to grab a handful of my ready-made bedding here and start in with bringing in this coffee. Oh yeah, it's warm. Alright, let's use about half of it. So I cheated. Instead of emptying the coffee maker this morning, I just added to it. And this saves me a filter. And saves me a little time. And now we've got a pretty good size portion of coffee in there in the filter. So it's pretty cool mixing it all in. It's almost invisible already. If we came looking for leftovers of that, we wouldn't find any. Now as my fresh bedding goes in, I do store my bedding a little bit damp. So when I make my shredded paper and shredded cardboard and leaf mixture prepared bedding, I'll be spraying it down and trying to help all those materials stick together, little fragments of leaves and everything in there. But I don't keep it very wet. So adding a little bit of that BTI solution down into here, into that freshly added bedding at the bottom, I think is a good medium to place it into. But I got a good bit of it here, and I don't need to be skimpy. It's hard to tell, you know, last time we came in here, it was very obvious. As soon as the video started rolling, you could see these flying insects everywhere, and your first impression was, oh my goodness, major infestation down in this bin. And I don't know if there's been much improvement between the last check-in 12 days ago and now. So, I don't know. This is already going to be the second application of BTI. And I don't know exactly what to expect because it's my first trial at using this stuff, although a lot of other people who've had issues in the past dealing with gnats and stuff like that have had success. Could have just been coincidence though, so who knows. Either way, I figured I'd give it a try anyhow. So let's keep building up this feeding area with a little bit more bedding. Looks like I'm about halfway through my little container here. I'm gonna have to shred some more soon. So you can see, not all that damp. So if I drizzle a little bit more of this BTI into here, it'll, for the most part, soak it up. I know when I pour it in like that, it's just going right to the bottom, right? If it was being atomized or sprayed in, it would probably have a better chance at staying suspended up high in the material. Doesn't matter. So let's just go ahead and bring in the rest of the stuff for the most part. Yeah, I think that is everything right there. Some of this is kind of frozen together. See a variety of different types of soup, vegetables. This is some cabbage, stems, whatever it's called. This stuff will probably kick out a little bit of moisture too as it thaws. So even though my first impression of coming into this edge of the bin was that, hey, it seems a little bit dry, I don't think we have anything to concern ourselves with now. With this feeding and with, especially with all that BTI we just poured in there too. That should really aid in the hydration of our system here. I don't think we have much to worry about, even though there's a little dryness on the surface because we're only covering with that sheet of cardboard. And even though over here on the opposite side where it's been almost 4 weeks since we fed, it wasn't too surprising that it wasn't very damp over here after that much time. Especially with banana peels being placed in here. Banana peels just don't bring with them a lot of moisture either. So hopefully what we're doing here is going to attract a crowd, be something that the wormies enjoy moving over into. But who knows? It might take a while, right? Because there's a lot of leftover apples, pears, whatever it is that's over on here on the other side is leftovers. Kind of makes me wonder if we need to stick to a somewhat longer, prolonged gap of time in between the feedings. I was just trying to see if I can, you know, shorten the span of time in between feedings here a little bit. I'm kind of operating on the assumption that as things get warmer, since it's springtime now, things might pick up a little bit. I always anticipate a little bit of a slowdown as the temperatures drop in the wintertime down here in my basement. But as things start warming up, I start to anticipate that the worms are going to get a little bit more lively, start to exhibit a little bit more of an appetite, and start eating a little bit more. So maybe we'll start seeing that sort of behavior soon. There's so many other variables too to, factor in when it comes to making decisions based on consumption of food. What is that? Oh, I thought I was picking up a worm cocoon, but it was just the very tip of a worm sticking out. Sorry, buddy. Get back to work. Eat. Alright, we're pretty much done here. We're going to start reassembling everything. Our new coffee filter comes in as the indicator to show us where we last fed. But I'm tempted here at this point. 127-day-old system. I would normally resist putting something in like fresh leaves, but I feel like I'd like to just have a nice top covering of leaves in here. Do I want to do that or don't I? You know what? Let's skip it. I thought that maybe if I had surfaced some little bits of food and stuff, that would be better off somewhat covered than maybe a top coating of leaves across the whole system would be a nice addition, but I'm not going to sweat it. I think we'll just go ahead and dose in the last of this BTI solution that I had portioned out for this feeding. Get it in here. Hopefully it's going to eventually start showing some results with reduced insect populations. And I'm really tempted. I keep right over here. I keep bringing out my my applicator for this dusty stuff, this powder, thinking that hey, even though at first I thought switching 100% over to BTI might be a good idea, I don't see any harm in just going 1-2 punch, So I believe what I'm going to start doing is phasing the use of this stuff back in. And here it's probably the least important because there's a good amount of leftover amount of it here. But I guess just to sort of make it official, and just to get that sort of muscle memory going here of me shaking the powder, trying to dust it out here, I think I am going to kind of reinstate the, oops, the 1-2 approach dealing with these little insects. And if I don't start seeing some progress, I might have to start thinking about some new tactics. But I think we're pretty much done here. And I do have a couple things I need to take care of as far as putting stuff away and getting things cleaned up, but I'm not going to waste your time with that. That stuff's boring. Before I go, though, really quick, let me just say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.